I know we were talking about this earlier. I just did Lee's podcast with her. It, I'm I said goodbye to my children, as they were leaving home, as they graduated from high school and going on to college, and I didn't think that I would blink my eyes and I would be saying goodbye to my grandkids who are getting ready to leave home. And it's this new wave of joy for them and sorrow for me all over again because we've had the privilege of spending so much time with our grandchildren. And it is true. So tell me this, what kept you going after you started homeschooling? I mean, why? I know why you started. Why did you continue?
Really, the crux of it comes down to I knew that was what God wanted for our family. I knew that was the lifestyle. I knew that He wanted us to be able to pour into our children within all hours of the day. And it was simply my job to stay with that commission that He had given me. And I've really tried to keep perspective of the big picture. There were hard days, there were hard weeks, months, there were hard entire school years. And keeping that bigger perspective that I am doing something greater than just today. I need to focus on the fact that God called me to this and He will equip me. He will help walk us through this. And there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of sanctification for the homeschool mom through the journey. And my job is simply to lean in and to do the next best thing and to do that day well, surrender it to God. And so really it was just me just having to do it. And so really that was what kept me going, was knowing that that's what God called us to do. And therefore, it was simply my job to carry out that calling.
So, what do you think are I know it's a little different when you have elementary school kids and then you have high school kids, but what do you think are the benefits of homeschooling? So let me back up to say. So we know that this is the beginning of a school year and there's still a lot of people sitting on the fence. Do I make that plunge into homeschooling? Do I continue homeschooling or is this the year I need to put them in school? So tell us what you think the benefits are for the kids.
At first, I mean, on the surface, and a lot of people who kind of push back against homeschooling, a great thing to be able to say is that the kids get to learn on their timeline. And if they are, I've kind of run the gamut with my kids that there's no rushing and there's no slowing down. So again, talking about my 5-year-old, he was ready to move on to the next thing. He's like, I know how to read the cat, whatever. I'm trying to think of I'm trying the cat in the hat, a simple sentence. He's like, let's move on to more complex ones, but he had to stop and he had to wait. And then that just kind of led us to him getting rambunctious and, getting in trouble. And I didn't have to stop and wait for anybody else. It was just looking at the kids individually and what does he need next? What does she need next? Which also gets into how it can be hard when you're meeting so many different needs. But it was really just looking at the fact that we could teach them on their own timeline. There was no rushing, there's no slowing down. And then their giftedness and their struggles, we could address that and we could meet them right where they were at. If they were maybe particularly gifted in one area or just ahead or just average, we could stick with that. If maybe they were slower in another area, kids can maybe excel in subjects like English and language arts, and then they struggle a little bit in the math, and then vice versa. And we could just meet them right where they were at. So that was a great benefit to that, was being able to create a custom education for them in all the years of their homeschooling. But bigger than that was that we were able to give them a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview that we wanted them to have. I remember going to school and they'd be teaching one thing at school and something different at church and really having a hard time like knowing the creation story, and they would teach evolution and I was like, no, but that's not right. But after a while, when you just hear it over and over and over again,
That's
it
right.
was hard. And I probably should have gone to my parents and asked them to explain and to give me more information to, help me to solidify my faith. But I really wanted to give them that foundation and not have to constantly be breaking something down that they were
Right,
taught. Yeah.
right.
And I think that it's fine for them to learn that stuff once they have that foundation. We've talked about evolution. My kids know how to break down that argument once we got into it, once they got to be a little bit older, middle school and high school. And so it was we just felt like we were called to give them a biblical worldview in all subjects and in all areas, and the best way to do that was just through their education and through daily life with them.